please share that with them. I was mentioning the tip of the day today was how to connect with your virtual audience, and there were a couple tips that I took to heart, and one of them was make sure that you share a personal story at the beginning, because it helps you, even though you're not in the same room, connect with those who are with us. So I did want to have a little exercise here as we get started, and I promise it'll be brief, but I wanted us all just to take a moment and think about what the power of Niagara means to us personally. So we're going to be talking a lot about sports today, but one thing that has been a blessing in disguise with our recent change in our life is we've been given a lot of time of reflection. And so I've had a chance to reflect sort of on, personally for sure, but then also professionally. And I was thinking about what I value most about this position. And I feel as honored and privileged to be the athletic director at Niagara today as I did 6 years ago when I got the job. And that is because of the people. So when you took a moment to reflect, I hazard a guess that most of you thought about people that you'd been with at Niagara. Maybe they were your classmates. Maybe they were people that you sat next to at a game. Maybe they're people you're still in touch with, or a professor or something. And so I thought of our student athletes and our coaches and our staff that I get to work with every day. You know, we're together 24 hours a day, at least 10 months out of the year. And this recent change has certainly upset how we conduct business. We are a lifestyle profession, so it has certainly changed our lives, but it's important to reflect on what keeps us motivated in our profession. I also I think about who I work for. I think about Father Marr. I think about our board of trustees, and I think about all of our alums and our donors and our benefactors who have given so much to our wonderful institution. And I'm just incredibly appreciative that I can work at a place that values humans and approaches things with a compassionate perspective. And that's even more important in times of crisis. On behalf of our department, I hope health and safety for all of you, and we extend our prayers to you, your family, and your friends as we get started and as we move through and get through this crisis. One of the other tips that they gave on the email this morning is not to let everybody see your nostrils. So I'm going to do my best to keep my head even keel so that you don't have to listen to or view my nostrils as we talk. Jacqueline, I'm going to attempt to share this PowerPoint now. So hopefully this will work. This also will help with not showing my nostrils to everybody. But as we look through, or as we work through today, our talk, we're going to work from the macro into the micro. And so we'll start with the NCAA and some of the changes and things we're working on through our national organization. We will move into our conferences, the MAC and Atlantic Hockey, speak specifically on them. And then we will move into Niagara University athletics specifically. There is a ton of material to go through. We have an hour, but this is our lives, so we could probably spend a whole lot more time than that. So unfortunately, I will move quickly through most of this material. If you do have questions, again, I hope that we can get to a lot of it, but I just wanted to give you an overview of exactly what we're doing day to day here in the intercollegiate athletics world. Jacqueline, can you see the PowerPoint okay? I can see you. Yeah.
Yep,
okay, very good. So we'll start with the NCAA landscape. Certainly, there was a time not too recently where name, image, and likeness and transfers and sports wagering were at the top of our list, and we were bracing for how those items were going to change us on a daily basis. And then COVID-19 struck within the past few months, obviously, but the most dire effects have been felt within the last month. And once the knowledge came about and how the impact was going to be felt within college athletics, basically it shut down. And we have, as many of you know, the NCAA has canceled winter championships, canceled spring championships. Our conference took it a step further to cancel the basketball tournaments, which were in progress, as many of you are aware. But then also to move forward and cancel the spring seasons, the practices and the competitions. In addition, the NCAA has eliminated any in-person recruiting. I know this was some of the questions that came through. Originally, the prohibition was through April 15th. Just yesterday, breaking news, just yesterday, that has been extended to May 31st. So what does that mean? That means that any coach, we can continue to recruit during this time period, but none of it can be in person. So we're not going off campus to recruit, and prospective student athletes aren't coming onto campus to recruit, but we can be in communication, and that's across the country. So everybody is operating on a level playing field as far as recruiting goes. The NCAA national office is closed, at least through the next month into May, and that could continue, obviously. So really a shutdown across the board. Recently, news came out about revenue distribution. Many of you have seen this, but the NCAA was projecting a revenue distribution of $600 million to the membership, and that has been cut back to $225 million. So the primary source of revenue for the NCAA is its basketball tournament, the television deal around March Madness. And when that was canceled, there was a significant repercussion on finances for not only the NCAA, but its membership. So at Niagara, we will be taking in about 1/3 of what was budgeted, what was expected from NCAA revenue distribution. And the way things are going and the way things have gone, I feel very fortunate that we are getting a revenue distribution. And I do appreciate the fact that the NCAA has taken steps in order to inconvenience themselves from a staff basis, but also to think about the membership in distributing revenue for this fiscal year. Also recently on Monday night, the Division I Council voted to extend eligibility for spring sports student athletes, where every spring sports student athlete will have one more year to compete. They still will only get 4 years of competition if they are freshmen, sophomores, or juniors, but any senior who was in their last year of eligibility has the opportunity to come back at the same institution. If they choose to transfer, they would lose that opportunity, but if they come back to the same institution, they do have the ability to compete next year. And a very wonderful decision. It was expected, but a tremendous decision by the Division I Council to allow an ability for student athletes who lost this year to be able to come back. Financial aid, universities have flexibility to continue financial aid for those student athletes who were in their final year of eligibility this year. So how does that affect Niagara? We're working on it. We are still working on all of the financial implications that go with that flexibility and that opportunity to bring back our student athletes to next year. So what that would mean for sports in the spring is they would have a freshman class, a sophomore class, a junior class, a senior class, and then a plus class, this group who's able to come back. So this changes by the minute. And so just reading emails this morning as I'm catching up on several things that happened yesterday. We're all figuring this out as we go along. We're able to plan for every different scenario, of course, but the full impact of revenue, the full impact of roster management, and how college sports will be forever impacted by COVID-19 is still to be determined. So we're following this closely as we go. Moving on to name, image, and likeness. This was something that was transformational, and will be transformational as we move forward. I feel very fortunate that Father Marr, our president, is on the NCAA Board of Governors, which is the top governance body within the NCAA. And so he's intimately involved in the conversations and the decision making, and is able to keep me abreast of what the thinking is and where we're going as an organization. But this is all based off of name, image, and likeness is all based off of student athletes being financially able to benefit off of their brand. And so you've seen the stories in the media of student athletes who have a special talent, but aren't able to recoup money because of that. It could be a YouTube talent or some other social media that they have a large following, but aren't able to make that a lucrative venture for themselves. And so the NCAA has been looking at ways to more fairly treat student athletes when it comes to their own personal brand. One of the main questions that has been raised with that is can there be a connection to the school, and them being a student athlete at a school? How does that impact their ability to monetize their own brand? And then how does that impact the institution? So the questions were numerous, a very, very complex situation. So that it has taken time for the NCAA to move through. You've seen in probably your state There is, I would guess, because it's over 30 at this point, there is legislation that's being proposed by your politicians to secure a way for student athletes to benefit off of their brand. And so that's been very important, that there has been a movement among state legislatures, and it's also been looked at by our federal division. Our Congress has also got involved. Clearly, they have different priorities right now, and that's understood and appropriate. But the NCAA is moving the ball forward on this initiative, and I do expect action to be taken in April. The task force has stayed focused and working on it. So stay tuned. There will be more information coming out on name, image, and likeness. Transfers. So this is another issue that's been going on for years within the NCAA, is how to handle transfers. In NCAA Division I basketball last year, I believe the number of student athletes that transferred was over 800 across the country. The national percentage is 40% of freshmen or sophomore will transfer from their original initial institution. So nobody is immune to this. Our conference is not immune. Mid-majors are not immune. Majors are not immune. So absolutely everybody has been facing transfers. It's part of our society now. It's part of youth sports as people are developing and coming through. You often hear AAU basketball being targeted, but it's all youth sports, and the ability for individuals to move, to find a place that best suits them. It's also in professional sports, as we've seen with free agency. So why would it be any different in collegiate sports? And it isn't. So as I said, it is a very complicated issue with very different agendas and motivations and inspirations. So what the NCAA is looking for is consistency. They're also very focused appropriately on the academic impact of transferring. That's something that is not always well thought through or well thought out when a student athlete decides to transfer. Is what is the impact on their academic pursuit of a degree? So the NCAA is making sure that academics is a part of the legislation moving forward on transfers. This is something that we deal with on a daily issue. Our student athletes, we try to give them the best experience that we can, and that's our number one priority, is giving them a great experience while they're here, academically, athletically, socially, developmentally, spiritually. We want them to get a degree from Niagara University. That's our top priority. And along the way, we want them to have a great experience. But that doesn't always work out. And so our coaches are tasked with keeping good communication patterns and making sure that they know where our student athletes are and what they're thinking. However, at times it just doesn't work out. And so we will work through them on the transfer into the transfer portal and through their decision making. But it is something that the NCAA is looking at for consistency. So stay tuned, that will be coming. I wanted to talk just a minute on the Sports Science Institute. This is something that has come about recently through the NCAA over the past couple of years. Dr. Brian Hainline is the Chief Medical Officer for the NCAA, and in my opinion, he's doing a wonderful job of making sure that our top priority is student athlete welfare. I mentioned getting a degree and having a good experience. That all ties into student athlete welfare. And some of the Sports Science Institute's top priorities recently have been about mental health, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Concussion protocol, making sure that we are handling concussions in the right way, from impact all the way through recovery. Enhanced practices with sports medicine, whether it be training, coverage, emergency rehearsing, top level instruction for sports medicine and emergencies that can come about. Also combating sexual violence on campus. So the Sports Science Institute covers a lot of different gamuts, but it has been a major focus from the NCAA and onto the member institutions, which I have really appreciated. Sports wagering, if I could talk about that for a minute. It's becoming more and more permissive around the country. In New York State, sports wagering is allowed. You cannot wager on New York teams in New York State, which I find is a benefit to us, but we're also very close to areas where you can bet on New York State teams. So it's something that we are focused on as a department and also as the NCAA. At the Niagara Falls Casino, just a few minutes from campus, there is a sports lounge where folks can go and bet on sports. And so, we are specifically attuned to that. We have ramped up and heightened our attention with our student athletes on training as far as sports wagering goes, our staff as well. And I want to give a moment of acknowledgement to our Board of Trustees who have really taken this on amongst themselves to focus on a policy that would prohibit our Board of Trustees and several other high-ranking administrators and officials within our campus community from prohibiting them on wagering on the Niagara University sports. We're also looking at this campus-wide. Many institutions or some institutions around the country would still be on the leading edge of this, looking at campus-wide prohibition against sports wagering on Niagara University. That was going to be a main initiative of this semester on campus for myself. Obviously, that's been delayed in some ways, but something that we are continuing to move forward. So that's a high-level look at some of the main things that the NCAA is focused on at this point. But I wanted to conclude this section by what's going right. What's the NCAA doing well? What are we as a national body doing well? I appreciate the recent decision-making from the NCAA. I think they've been very appropriate, and they have not been focused on the financial implications, which will be significant based on their recent decision-making. But it is all centered on the health and welfare of student athletes, coaches, staff, and of course the fans and everyone who would be within our games or within our operations. So I have really appreciated the decision making. There's a lot of concern about the fall, and football primarily is getting the main headlines these days, but there's significant concern about will we be able to get up and running for the fall. So we're taking an optimistic view of it at this point, that we will be able to come back. But as I said in our all-staff meeting with everyone yesterday, to assume that we will come back and it will be business as usual next year as compared to how we've been operating is a faulty assumption. So there will be changes in collegiate athletics, and the full extent of that is still to be realized. I do believe that the NCAA has done a great job in providing a championship experience for the student athletes. The focus that the NCAA has put on academic standards and metrics has been very positive. We'll talk a little bit more about our student athletes at the end of the presentation, but the focus on academics and the accountability that's been put behind these academic metrics has really paid off in a positive way for student athletes. There's been a tremendous growth in participation amongst sports, especially women's sports through the years and most recently. So that is certainly valued at Niagara University and around the country. And something that we alluded to earlier, but we will continue to talk about throughout this presentation, is a focus on benefits for student athletes and improving their experience and the access that they have to those benefits. Moving over to our conferences. So as many of you know, we have 18 varsity programs, 17 compete in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and 1 competes in Atlantic Hockey. And I wanted to briefly talk in general about the appreciation that we have for those leagues and their leadership and their approach to college athletics, which is mindful always of academics and being a student athlete, being a student first. And I appreciate our colleagues in the collegial manner in which our conferences approached, the daily operations. And that was manifested on March 12th, and the decision of the Board of Presidents within the MAC to halt the women's and the men's basketball tournaments with 3 days left, which I'll be honest, I think the MAC was on the early part of making those decisions, both within the basketball tournaments and the spring seasons. When the first conference to do it, the Ivy League and the Patriot League came out, and it was really startling when it first happened, but the MAC was right there behind them in making that decision. And I applaud at the highest level our executives who were thinking about health and safety first. We did have conference members who were at the epicenter of COVID, Iona being in New Rochelle. And so we had an intimate view into the very early stages of COVID hitting the United States. And so I think that was, while no one would wish it, I think that was very impactful on our conference. And they knew that health and safety had to be paramount, had to take the priority. Similarly, Atlantic Hockey and the administrators, and I want to give credit to Steve Butler, who's our deputy AD. He's the executive committee head of Atlantic Hockey from the administrative side. And they very quickly, as this was happening, they were the first hockey conference to cancel their conference tournament. Now, I feel badly about that. We all feel badly about these decisions, especially because I think our hockey team was playing the best it had played through the season. We'll talk more about them later, but it was a difficult decision in many ways because you didn't want to stop the opportunity for our student athletes to chase a championship, but it was also a very appropriate decision at the time. Revenue distribution. We talked a little bit earlier about the difference in what the NCAA will be distributing to its membership this year. Most of those memberships go through the conference, and the conference does also financially benefit from those distributions. And so the MAC and Atlantic Hockey, to some extent, are going to take a financial hit because of the dwindling distribution, at least for this year, and then possibly moving forward. So we have to take an open mindset, and I think our conference is focused on having an open mindset on what the future will be. We're having weekly calls amongst all the ADs within the MAC and the senior women administrators. Deidre Palmer is a member of our leadership team, and we are in the conference leadership. But we're looking at what this means for us moving forward, and there's still a lot of questions out there, and so there's a lot of hard work still to be done on figuring out how best to navigate the climate right now. I just wanted to talk briefly about the championships in Atlantic City for basketball and the Harbor Center, where the semifinals and the final were last year, and we're going to be again this year for hockey. And starting with Atlantic City, this was our first year in Atlantic City for the basketball tournaments, and by every indication, it was going to be a tremendous success. There was great buy-in from the Atlantic City community. There was great buy-in from all of our membership within the MAC. The on-site organizing committee was very strong. They really wanted the MAC to be there, and it looked like it was going to be a real success. And of course, no one could have predicted the way that it ended this year, but I feel very enthusiastic about the future in Atlantic City, and I thank all of the alums who came out to support us, both our women's team and our men's team, while we were there. It was a really good showing, and I know had our men's team worked their way into the weekend, that the number of alums was even going to grow. So I do appreciate those that were there. Similarly, last year at the Harbor Center, when we played in the semifinals in the championship of Atlantic Hockey, it was an electric atmosphere in Buffalo, and we had at least half of the arena in purple, and it is an ideal host for Atlantic Hockey. It is where Canisius plays their home games during the year, but it's very close for us, very ideal for our fan base. So great student athlete experience at the Harbor Center, and we hope that can continue. Okay, moving forward, I know we're pressing a little bit on time, but I want to spend some time talking about Niagara Athletics. So what has all this meant to us, and where are we currently? You know, a current state, it's hard to do in 10 minutes or so, so I'm going to move fairly quickly. And as I was preparing my materials for today, one of the things I feel badly about is that not every sport will be touched on in the next few minutes, and they all certainly could be, because there are highlights, and all of our student athletes are dedicated, and our coaches, but strictly because of time constraints, we'll move through fairly quickly with our update. First of all, spring sadness. So all of us are heartbroken, clearly, by what's come about with the spring seasons. We feel very appreciative of the fact that our senior student athletes can come back, but the reality of it is that not all of them will. And so the teams that were built for this year will not come back in the same capacity next year. And so it is very heartbreaking, after all the time and dedication that our student athletes and our coaches put in, that they were not able to bring closure to perhaps their careers. But again, absolutely the right decision, 100% appropriate, and we are doing the best that we can to honor those who missed out on their opportunity. The reaction from our coaches and our student athletes throughout this entire last few weeks to a month has been exceptional. I really appreciated the way they have approached this. They've been disappointed, but they've been understanding. Several people on several occasions mentioned, you know, the sadness that we're feeling personally because of how we've been impacted, but that it's much bigger than sports. It's much bigger than one of our sports teams, this is a global pandemic that we really need to focus on. At the same time, our baseball team did open the season with a victory over number 14 Florida State. And how wonderful was that to rally in the ninth inning and take down a perennial powerhouse in baseball. Our lacrosse team had already won 2 very chilly home games to start the season, but but certainly a good start there. As we move into the fall, just a couple highlights. We had a really nice fall season, as we always do, but our women's cross country team won the Little 3 championship. They beat Canisius and St. Bonaventure, and I know that gives a rise to everybody on the call today. Anytime we can trump Canisius and St. Bonnie's, our longtime rivals. So great job by our women's cross country team. Our women's soccer team was 5-1-1 at home this year and won a tournament game. Our men's soccer team celebrated their 50th season this year and had their longest winning streak since 2012. First ever individual tournament champion for our women's golf program, and of course many other conference and programmatic records and accolades that were achieved. So very positive fall season. Looking into the winter season, we welcomed two new head coaches to Mont Eagle Ridge. On our swimming and diving program, Eric Bugby came in and took the reins of swimming and diving program. He's done a very, very nice job with that group and assimilated himself and was able to provide an impact to our student athletes at a time when they needed it almost immediately. So appreciate Eric coming on board and the approach that he's taken. Also appreciate Greg Paulus, our new men's basketball coach, who came in, as everyone knows on the call, and became the interim head coach right before the season. And we felt so good about how his approach was to our basketball program that we made him the permanent head coach as we took the floor against Drexel on opening night. And it just feel great about Greg Paulus, and we'll talk a little bit more about men's basketball here in a minute. We had a lot of momentum going in our winter sports. We'll start with our women's basketball team. They won a MAC tournament game, nearly upset the top seed Rider, gave them everything absolutely that we could. And if it wasn't for the player of the year, one of the best players in the country from Ryder's team, we would have advanced and moved on into the semifinals of the MAC tournament. So great job by 6 seniors and Coach Pierce there at the end of the year, playing really well. We had the MAC's 6th person of the year, Maggie McIntyre, a senior point guard who's also the president of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee. We'll talk about Maggie here in a minute as well, but a great accolade for her. Several individual and team highlights as well. We had 10 on the all-academic team from our women's basketball program. Awesome accomplishment academically from them. Men's basketball, Greg Paulus, who we mentioned earlier, was named the Joe B. Hall Coach of the Year, which is given to the top rookie coach in college basketball. Our team was in the top 25 in the nation in three-point percentage and also in several turnover categories. And we had the best assist-to-turnover ratio in the MAC, which, of course, is not a surprise to any of you that know that Greg Paulus was an outstanding point guard at Duke University, and his tutelage carried over into significant statistical accolades for our program. We also had a 3.18 GPA in the fall in our men's basketball program, the highest, certainly in my tenure and in a long time. We were 9-3 at home, and we did win we did win a tournament game and beat many of the best teams in the conference during the regular season. So tremendous start. I know some of the questions revolve around the basketball program, and we'll get to those as we move on in the presentation. Our men's ice hockey program, 3.6 grade point average across the team, absolutely outstanding. They finished the season winning 6 of 8 and earned a first round bye in the Atlantic Hockey Tournament, which actually, as it turned out, meant that they did not play in the Atlantic Hockey Tournament, but a tremendous accomplishment to win that first round, to earn that first round bye. They beat the number 20 team in the country during the year and had a 6-year high in league wins. One of our senior defensemen, Noah Delmas, became the all-time leading scorer for defensemen at Niagara. So as I said, tremendous momentum in the winter. Really appreciate the approach that our student athletes took and also finished with, because it has been recently decided by the NCAA that eligibility will not be extended for any of the winter sports. And so those seniors that we had in those programs, including 2 of the 3 programs that did not finish their season, did not finish their career in competition, they will be moving on, but really appreciate the way that they went about business every day. Momentum has carried over into the ticket realm. We've done very well in renewal of tickets on the men's basketball program. We're also currently renewing tickets for hockey and women's basketball as well. We have extended the deadline to May 31st. So we encourage anyone who is season ticket holders to get their deposit in to hold their seats for next year, because it's only going to get more exciting. I can promise you that. I wanted to conclude my initial remarks talking about some of the highlights and strengths of our athletics department, and then also the challenges. So starting out with the highlights and strengths, our student athletes. This is why we come to work every day. This is why we ask you to be invested in our department, is because of the 330 student athletes that we have, and the incredible amount of dedication that they put in. They wear purple and white with pride, and they know that every time they go out there and work out, condition, compete, that they're representing all of us, and I greatly appreciate that. 3.26 grade point average in 2018-19. We had a 3.38 grade point average in the fall, this past fall. All 18 Division I programs had a GPA above 3.0. Absolutely outstanding. Our retention for student athletes is 90%. Our number one major is biology. Every time I stand before the academic senate, one of the questions in college athletics is around monitoring academic clustering. So making sure that your student athletes don't all go into one major. It's just a sign of, just keeping track of making sure everything's on the up and up. Well, anyone who's going to challenge us that we're clustering in biology, I will welcome that challenge. Bring it on. I would love to talk about that. Our number two major is business management. NCAA metrics, the academic progress report and graduation success rate, those are two main metrics within the NCAA, and they're so important that they have put an academic distribution, it's called a value-based revenue distribution, on those two criterias. And at Niagara, we are at all-time highs for our program as far as retention, eligibility, and graduating our student athletes. And I give credit to not only the student athletes who are doing it, but also our coaches who have put an emphasis on academic excellence from the time they recruit a student athlete all the way through graduation. We are doing very well academically. We are progressing athletically and competitively, and we continue the Niagara tradition of working in the community. Every one of our student athletes does community service. Every one of our coaches does community service on an annual basis. We're always there when called upon to step in and help. And I know that those of you who have come through the Niagara tradition can appreciate our Vincentian mission. Maggie McIntyre, who I mentioned earlier, did a podcast. She hosts podcasts, and she hosted a podcast with Michelle Granieri. We'll talk a little bit about Michelle here in a minute when we talk about mental health support, but they did a podcast on how to approach from a mental strength standpoint, what we're all going through right now with this isolated effort. And that's been sent out to our student athletes and at large. So tremendous job by Maggie. Also along the Vincentian mission, I did want to mention John Monroe from our sports medicine. He's our assistant AD for sports medicine, and he's contributed gloves to Niagara Falls Memorial, some leftover sanitary gloves that we had. So we are doing our part where we can to make sure that we are doing the best that we can for our community. We did have some questions about facilities, so I'm gonna rip through these pretty quickly, but we've done a really focused and important effort amongst facility enhancements. Just this year, here are some improvements that we've made. Through the generosity of Bill and Kathy McKnight and their $1 million gift, we were able to install 3 video boards, 2 in the Gallagher Center, 1 in Dwyer Arena. We totally revamped the production studio in Dunleavy Hall. As part of that project, we also brought in a new scoreboard at the softball field and a new LED sign outside of Dwyer Arena. So incredibly appreciative of the generosity of the McKnights, and you can see the far-reaching impact that gift had across our campus, impacted not only individual programs, but campus at large with some of the signage. We have completed renovations on carpeting in some of our locker rooms and our team rooms. The basketball programs are using a new film room that came about because of a private gift and a changeover from a team room into a theater style film room. Really, really impactful change there from the basketball program, and appreciate the leadership that got that done. We've had upgrades in our hockey locker room, and credit to Jason Lammers and his group who have spearheaded that, and also in our women's lacrosse locker room. Hopefully most of you have seen the new branded signage in Dwyer Arena. It has completely transformed the space in addition to the video board, but new vinyl signage on one wall, a new vinyl sticker behind the benches, completely transformed the feel in Dwyer Arena. We also are playing tennis now on purple and gray tennis courts, pretty neat, hopefully imposing for those who come into campus to play tennis. But just this year. Also, we have a couple projects in progress. We are renovating the pool. We're moving the starting blocks into the deep end, and the floor of the pool and some other areas are being renovated. And we're also in the process of putting up a new nice netting backstop at our softball field. So we've removed the chain link fence and we're putting in a new nice netted backstop. All of that on top of recent significant renovations to $2 million project at our baseball field, and also a recent renovation to our weight room, which came about because of a generous donation from one of our alums. But that weight room services all 18 sports and 330 student athletes. So it has been really, really impactful for our group. Moving on to online broadcasts. So as part of a conference initiative, every conference member was producing ESPN quality broadcasts. I'd like to thank Dr. Mark Barner from our Communication Studies program, and also our sport management program, Mike Gentile and Patrick Tutka, who we couldn't have done it without them. Our online broadcasts were a tremendous collaboration between the athletics department and academic affairs. It was experiential learning for our students. So they were running the cameras, they were in the production studio with Kyle Barker, one of our newest staff members who oversees our creative services, under the tutelage of Derek Thornton. I want to commend Assistant AD for Communications, Derek Thornton, Steve Butler, who spearheaded the project from the athletic department side. But I hope all of you were able to witness some of our online broadcasts. Really, really went well here in the first year. Mental health support, Michelle Granieri. So for the first time this year, we have a mental health counselor. This is in collaboration with our student health services department. Have Michelle Granieri, who's with us, and she's been able to focus on student athletes, and it's been really important before the pandemic and also is really important now. So she continues her work, and we continue to look for ways to programmatically approach this in mass and also individually, because that support has to be there in this trying times. As we look forward into the future, what are we looking at from a facilities standpoint? In our campus master plan, which has recently been approved through the Board of Trustees, there are a few projects that I wanted to highlight. These are, I would say, intermediate to long-term projects, but some of them we're looking to start on a more short-term basis. One of those is a renovation of the Kiernan Center. Many of you may have seen the publicity surrounding the HECAP grant, which the university received, and that is new offices and locker rooms. That would be one of the primary benefits to the athletics department, but would also provide new weight rooms and expanded space for all of the students at Niagara University. So that Kiernan Center project is on the campus master plan. Some that are more specific to Division I athletics are a new field house. So we're looking for a new area for indoor training. Right now we're doing everything in Scafidi Gym in the back of Kiernan Center, and we greatly appreciate the access that we have in that area. Not always convenient to the general student body, so we would be looking to have a dedicated indoor field house. Also a track that would benefit our track and field program, our cross-country programs, all of our student athletes from a conditioning standpoint, but that would also be a campus and a community facility. We're also in the campus master plan have identified an expansion of the Gallagher Center, and that expansion would include support services areas. It could be strength and conditioning center, athletic training, study hall, academic support, success for not only the teams in our that play and live in the Gallagher Center, our volleyball and our basketball programs, but also out into our student athlete population. So those are some exciting projects that we're looking for to bolster our department in the future. We're also looking at changing out the lighting into more LED focused lighting in the Gallagher Center and Dwyer Arena. We would like to provide new enhanced seating in premium locations in both of those venues as well. We're also looking at continued improvements at the softball field. We've targeted fencing as the next step, and of course we're looking at the field as well. In the climate that we compete in softball, it would be very important to be able to have an all-weather surface. So we are looking at that as well. So nice transition into the challenges. The current environment. So on a day-to-day, as I mentioned earlier, on a day-to-day basis, things are changing and the uncertainty is paramount. When we'll be back in business, how we will be back in business when that comes, we just don't know at this point. We are planning for every different scenario, but more and more details are coming about every day. And so we'll just have to stay tuned there. Sports wagering, I mentioned a little bit about that earlier, but it is something that we're focused on from a safety perspective for our student athletes, also for our students in general. We need to stay hyper-focused on sports wagering. It's obviously shut down right now because there are no sports, but as that gets ramped back up, that is a significant revenue source for many states around the country. And so we have to make sure that we're doing our part to educate student athletes and others in our campus community and community at large. Revenue needs. There's always been inflation from an operating standpoint. We need to focus on our compensation to recruit and retain coaches and staff. Of course, we're focused on student athlete welfare. One of the main needs is nutrition for our student athletes. Food is a constant subject matter around the country when it comes to college student athletes. So being able to, as our hockey program focuses on outsciencing the opponent, is being able to make sure we're offering the recovery, which comes to equipment and also food that our student athletes need to go from workouts to competition and competition to competition. So we are very focused on student athlete welfare, specifically nutrition. And I thank Van Wagner, who's a partner of ours. Van Wagner Sports and Entertainment is a third party, but who has assimilated into our department. They handle our corporate rights inventory. They've been very helpful in several aspects, but one of the things that they've done for us this year is a corporate partnership with Intense Milk, a dairy farm who has been able to provide chocolate, strawberry milk, cheese sticks, yogurt, different dairy products to our student athletes. So when they're finished with their workout, they're able to grab and go a quick snack to aid in their recovery. When we talk about revenue needs, a couple of initiatives that came about this year that I'm very thankful for. One was our inaugural Central New York golf outing. John Barsani, I know, is on the call, and I'm sure several of his committee are on the call as well. It netted us $25,000 to $30,000, and that is a big number for Niagara athletics. There was a lot of hard work over a 12-month plus period from the committee, but I'm just very, very thankful for that initiative. We're looking at, we have leadership in Rochester who are looking at it, and of course, looking at doing a golf tournament potentially this summer. Obviously there's an impact coming from changing times these days. We're also looking at our Ray Kiss golf tournament is scheduled for June 1st, potentially moving that back just because of what we're dealing with in the world right now. The Central New York golf tournament for next year is scheduled for September 10th. So we hope to see everybody in Syracuse out there when we can enjoy some fresh air and get out and enjoy the fellowship that has to do with the golf program, or golf, allowing us to get out and play some golf. Two other initiatives that we're very proud of that we launched this year are the Inside Edge program, which Jason Lammers and a core group of those who have affinity for our hockey program have launched to enhance the fundraising, the development, advancement behind our hockey program. And similarly, a Niagara Elite program, which benefits our women's basketball program and our men's basketball program. So although they were just started this first year, we had tremendous input from our donors and our benefactors who got involved. It's easy to do once you learn a little bit about the programs, you learn about our student athletes, and you learn about our coaches. You learn about their vision and what they're doing to move Niagara University hockey and basketball forward, because it's all under the premise of moving Niagara University forward. So when you get involved in the Inside Edge and Niagara Elite, you're helping Niagara University raise its profile, because that's what we think is a primary focus for our athletics department, is to increase the entire profile of Niagara University. That's what we're here to do. So that transitions perfectly into our conclusion. As you can see, or as you've heard, there is a ton of material, a ton of things that we are focused on, working on a daily basis. And we do it all because of our student athletes. And so we are focused on a way to celebrate them, particularly the seniors, as we need to make right on some of them who have lost an ability to close out their college career in competition. So again, I thank you for that. I know we have some questions that I want to get to, and I'm sorry that was so much to throw at you at one time.
That was great. Thank you, Simon. Simon, where can someone go to get the latest information on Purple Eagle Athletics, social media handles? I mean, there's always so much. If I want to know, I know I was on the plane with the softball team to Orlando back couple months ago. So if an alum just want to see, hey, could Niagara Athletics, they played in Texas this year, where's the best place to go and get that information?
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline, for that question. So we get comments a lot about communication, and I promise you we are doing our best to communicate as much as we can. But it is difficult, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but these days most communication in our business is virtual and online, and so purpleeagles.com is definitely the best website to go to get all the most recent information. But I would also encourage you, as much as you do in the social media space, to focus on our Twitter account, on our Facebook account, on our Instagram account, our YouTube channel. We've really made an effort to put more videos out there this year because that's the content I think people have gravitated towards. So our creative services staff has really done a nice job of changing and moving in that direction, and we will continue to do that. You're going to see some unique content in all of those mediums, particularly the website this spring, because we have the ability to do that. We're not focused on competitions at this point. Just today we've posted a senior spotlight for our men's golf program. I'd also encourage you to read Dear Basketball by Claire Wanzer, one of our women senior student athletes who did just a really heartfelt, wonderful job of writing a letter to the sport of basketball. And so those things can be found on purpleeagles.com, Jacqueline. So I appreciate that question. And if people have ideas of ways that we can communicate better, we do try to be efficient in our communication. We do try to maximize the personnel and the resources that we have. So putting it out there in mass to those different online forums is the way we've chosen to communicate primarily.
Great. Thank you, Simon. I know on behalf of our Alumni Relations Office and myself, we continue to make an effort to look at the entire athletic schedule, where the sports teams are, and plan gatherings in and around different areas. If you are in an area where you see an athletic team we are happy to work with you and the alumni that live in that area too.
Jacqueline, can I say one thing on that piece? Thanks for saying that. Our coaches and athletes absolutely love to see you. And they love, I know some folks think, well, maybe I shouldn't go up and say hello if I'm an alum and I'm there. They want you to go. Now, if the ball's about to tip off, maybe if we could wait, just maybe till after the game or maybe an hour before the game. But anytime we know, and Jacqueline and her office do a great job, Howard, of letting us know who's coming to the games, we try to give a heads up to our coaches that you'll be there. And so they will be looking for you, even if they can't specifically come up and see you. But please know that they appreciate you being there and always enjoy talking with you.
Thank you, Simon. We received a lot of questions about basketball and its future and the excitement that we saw this year. Can you give us a little inside scoop onto maybe the recruiting process or what next year's schedule could look like?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Jacqueline. So recruiting is interesting. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, but the NCAA has also delayed the National Letter of Intent, the NLI process, and the financial aid agreement commitment process for recruited student athletes. And so what that means is, while we have verbal commitments from student athletes, which you can see out there on the internet, it's on our blogs, it's out there on national blogs of who we've recruited. You can get those things, but we can't actually comment on them. And so oftentimes people say, why haven't you put out a release about this basketball recruit? We can't officially say anything until they've signed an NLI or committed on a financial aid agreement. And right now, that has been delayed into April, so into the middle of April and potentially beyond. We're still working on that. So I can't officially say anything. I will say that there is good recruiting news out there. I can't officially say anything about those recruits online or anywhere, actually, so because of NCAA rules. But there is good news out there, and I know that Coach Paulus and his staff continue on the recruiting trail. We do have some opportunities to go. We had Kobe Nwandu, who was sitting out this past year, so he's going to join the team next year. There is some size coming in to complement our very, very strong guard play that's in there. So I'm very enthusiastic about what our roster is going to look like next year. Also, the schedule. So it's still a little bit early in the scheduling process for games, and we're still working through contracts. So I'm hesitant to speak specifically about games. I'm anticipating 13 home games next year, plus an exhibition is my expectation. So I think we'll have 14 opportunities in the Gallagher Center to see the Purple Eagles. We're looking at MTE options, which are in-season tournaments. That would be on the road somewhere. We are looking at guarantee games, so those are the big buy games. This past year we played at Syracuse and IPFW, which were guarantee games. So we will have a couple of those opportunities for next year. One of the things we look at in buying, we get communication from alums all the time, and we know you would love to have the Purple Eagles come into your backyard and play, and we'd love to get there. We'd love to get everywhere. But one of the things that we look at in guarantee games is how to maximize our revenue. So, and make it easy for our student athletes. So we do look for closer guarantee games, ones that we can potentially bus to, that we don't have to stay over for a long time, and aren't grueling trips. Now, last year we did go out to Stephen F. Austin as part of a tournament that brought in significant revenue to the basketball program. But there are some outliers. But for the most part, from a scheduling standpoint, we are looking to bring in money in those guarantee games, but also to be efficient and maximize the revenue that we can bring in, and also the impact on our student athletes. I would say stay tuned. We are working on this earlier than we have been, so we may be able to get our non-conference schedule out more quickly than the overall schedule. But at the same time, until they're signed in a contract, I'm hesitant to talk about it.
Thank you. If anyone too wants to sign it, add any questions into the chat. There hasn't been anything yet. I know Simon's covered so much, and we have about 4 minutes left. So I'll keep going until I see anything else come up. Simon, how about expanding the student body in the community and really getting the Niagara community, Niagara Falls, Lewiston, the Western New York area, and our students behind Niagara Athletics?
Right, and that's so important, and I appreciate the question, and it's something we really struggle with, and it's not just Niagara that struggles with it, it's around the country. People's daily lives have changed, what they're focused on, what their priorities are, has changed over the years, and so there's so many more opportunities for entertainment, and there's so many more draws on people's time, and so we have to do an increased effort into getting people to our games. We do hear a lot that the student body doesn't come out the same as it used to, and I would say around the country that is the case. However, we're not using that as an excuse not to engage them. So I appreciate how our student affairs has stepped up in the recent years to do tailgates pregame and get our students together and fired up for going upstairs. We are looking at going up into the Gallagher Center or over to Dwyer or to any of our venues, the lacrosse, soccer field, wherever it is, because we do that, and it makes a difference for our student athletes when there are a lot of people at the games, when their student peers are at the game. So we do continue to look for ways to do that. One of the main things we focus on is partnerships around the campus.
Wonderful. Thank you. Simon, from the alumni side of things, what do you need most from the alumni that are on this call, from the 36,000 that we have in our alumni base? What's something, if you could take one or two things, what could we give you?
I would say carrying our flag for us, certainly, out there in the community. I mean, people contribute in different ways. They can come to games, they can follow us and see us on the road. They can send encouraging notes to our coaches. They can send encouraging messages through social media to our student athletes. Those are important. It's very important for us to know that people care and people are following us and people are engaged with us. We've heard more and more over this past year across our programs, specifically in the basketballs and hockey. We hear a lot from people, and it feels good, and it validates the work that people are putting in. So that's one thing. Carry our flag, spread the message. When you're talking to your classmates and your alums, continue to tell people how hard we're working and some of the academic metrics and points of pride from our department. And what we're trying to do ultimately is get more people engaged in the department. We need more people to join the Purple and White Club, surely, which is the main fundraising arm of the athletics department. We want more people in the Niagara Elite and the Inside Edge. But people give. Everyone's in a different place, so people can give and of different talents and treasures that they have. That's what we need the most.
Great, thank you. This is going to be a two-part question. These are all based again on what people are sending in to me privately or in the message board. How do you support a young coach like Greg Paulus? We're actually the same age versus an older coach, and with that, how do you see the hiring of Iona's head coach Rick Pitino affecting the MAC?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So interesting question on Greg. Greg's one of the most mature people that I've been around. And so his approach far exceeds his age. So with him and with any coach, really, it's not necessarily their biological age. It also could be their experience in coaching and how long they've been in the program. So what I try to do with any new head coach, and Greg maybe more so than others, only because of the proximity, the way we break up our administrative staff, we are sport administrators for different sports, and in addition to cross country and track and field, the men's and women's basketball programs fall within my purview. They all do, but specifically on a day-to-day sport administrator tact. So Greg and I would meet, almost daily, and we would talk through several different scenarios. We would bounce ideas off of each other. With a seasoned coach or someone who's been at Niagara, sometimes those communications lessen over time, but not necessarily. It could be that different initiatives come up, different people come into our circle or whatever. So the most important thing is constant communication and working together, making sure that we're on the same playing field. It's more important for someone who's in their first year at Niagara or in their first year as a head coach, because just adding that support and stability. As far as Rick Pitino, we'll see. It's certainly a splash hire for Iona, and it's interesting. There will be a lot of pomp and circumstance when he comes to Lewiston and Niagara Falls and wherever he goes. I don't know him personally. I look forward to meeting him and working within the constructs of the MAC governance, to work with him. But Iona certainly thought that was a good move, and it will bring, a different focus onto our conference and onto our games. So it will be very interesting.
Wonderful, thank you. Perfect. I do agree. We should have more of these updates, and thank you everyone for the kind words that you have submitted and for taking the time out of your morning. I want to be respectful of the 10:30. I know it's 10:32. We started right around 9:32. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. We do plan to have more of these. Simon and I have talked offline about having a few different coaches. I believe I actually saw Coach Lambert's on the call at some point, but highlighting hockey, baseball, women's basketball, men's basketball. So stay tuned to those. This will not be just when we're in isolation type of session. We will continue to do these through the year, on a broad base. So if you are interested in any other of our other events, you can go to niagara.edu/virtual alumni, and you will see a broad base of alumni events that we are having this way. So something else may be of interest to you as we continue to move forward in this new normal. Simon, thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for everyone that joined our call today. It was really great to see some familiar names and faces and classmates of mine even. If you have any other questions too following this, feel free to send my way. I will make sure they get to Simon, or you can contact Simon directly too at askgray@niagara.edu.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.